welcome back to my channel. It is now, I'm going to call it post-Ahsoka time, and this is probably going to be the first video of all of the making of the Scarlet Witch things. So today, I would like to introduce you all to my great friend, AngiViper. AngiViper, there she is. She is based out of LA, and why I brought Angi here for you guys to see is that she actually worked on the Scarlet Witch costume in WandaVision. It's so cool. I'm still fangirling about it.
Come true.
We'll talk about our love of that outfit, but first I want people to know who you are. So if you could give a little intro about yourself, that would be lovely.
I can.
Yes.
Well, obviously my name is AngiViper. For anyone who's curious, I am a 34-year-old cosplayer living in Los Angeles, technically just outside of Los Angeles, but it's essentially all the same. I have been cosplaying since 2000, so about 21 years. I'm completely self-taught.
Damn, 2000?
I am a grandma in this.
Oh my god. We're similar in age. I'm 32, you're 34, but like thinking about my 2000 self cosplaying is like oil and water. Like I would have never mixed. I just love the fact that you've been around for like the aughts.
I love talking about it, and I love talking about how the community has changed over the years. So if you ever want to do another video where we like chat a bit about
that would be
about
really
the differences.
Fun. Yes, I would love to, because all of us, I mean, at least the majority of my cosplay friends that I hang out with, we're all in our 30s now, and all of us have kind of started either at the end of the aughts or the beginning of the 2010s, but I only have a very handful of people that are like, I started before 9/11.
Yeah.
Not many people can say that.
It's been a long time. A lot has changed. And I have been honing my skills for a long time. And it's one of the reasons that I really like to bring up how long I've been in the community. Because I know, there's constantly newcomers or like aspiring cosplayers that'll show up and be like, I wish I could cosplay like you. And I'm like, God, I was shit when I started. Like I didn't even have wigs. Wigs didn't even exist. Color contacts didn't even exist. Cosplay photographers, non-existent. All my photos were taken by my mom in my kitchen. Like you have every opportunity available to you. Just go have fun.
Yeah. And it's just it builds on, especially with cosplay. Cosplay is such a journey, because you start as a cosplayer, and when you are still doing it, you're still a cosplayer. Your skill set grows, and it will always grow. It won't get worse the more you cosplay.
But there's never a point where you're not a cosplayer.
Right.
From day one until the day that you decide to stop, you are always a cosplayer.
Always.
But yeah, cosplay was a way for me when I was younger to kind of like find self-confidence and find myself and my voice. And as I continued cosplaying, I found myself really only passionate about that.
I mean, kind of, yeah.
So I started taking commissions full time for a couple of years, and that was awesome. But oh my God, it is hard to do when it's just you.
Yes.
So I started to struggle a little bit. I decided I was going to rejoin the workforce, but I wanted to pursue doing costumes full time. And lucky for me, already lived in Los Angeles. I was able to, make some connections and kind of build my way up to where I am now.
Yeah. It's pretty amazing how location really can help your career as a costumer, seamstress, makeup artist, anything that has to do with entertainment. And I hate saying it because I feel like everybody can do their best anywhere, but like I live in Kentucky and I ain't getting stuff here. So, well, it does matter. It does matter. But with those opportunities, you got to work on some really cool stuff and can continue to work on some really cool stuff.
Yes. Yeah. It is definitely very much about convenience in this industry. Studios would generally rather, and I mean that in like Warner Brothers, Paramount, whatever, as well as like Ironhead and the like maker studios. Studios would rather hire someone who's there and available right now than have to wait for someone, and they would rather hire someone that they've worked with before because they already know your work and they already know that they've kind of trained you in your studio. So I know a lot of people that would even just live outside of Los Angeles, they live like an hour or two outside of LA, who would love to get into the film industry. And it's like smashing your head against a brick wall because they want you to be right there and available right now at all times.
It's kind of crazy because now with the COVID and pandemic, everyone's like, oh, you can totally work from home and do all this. And some of these industries are like, no, you can't. Not one bit. You need to come in. Sorry, but that's how it is. So do you think, obviously your cosplay skills have led into this career and helped push you through that? I mean, can you talk a little bit more how you went from cosplay to career? In a weird way, because it's up and down, because I have the exact same pathway on mine too, because you start out, you're like, I can do this, and then you're like, you try it, and then you're like, no, it's not for me, and then you go and you're like, oh, I do this, and you got a good connection, and then it goes away, and it's just like a roller coaster.
I'll start by talking about my path. My path was very unique and very, very lucky. And I talk a lot when people are like, oh, I want to get into the industry, like, how do I get into the industry? And I'm like, honestly, like, people talk a lot about, oh, it's who you know, it's who you know, it's who you know, but so much more than that. It's sheer luck. Because
I hate that though. Ooh,
it's awful. It's
luck who doesn't play bills.
But it really is about luck and timing and availability. The film industry is very much about, like, can you drop everything and go whatever position that you want within the film industry. There's hundreds of thousands of people that want the same job as you. If you aren't willing to take what you get, you're out.
That's so hard, especially with people with families, or maybe with a disability, or with some kind of something. It's like, you want to do this, but how much willing are you wanting to give up?
There's a lot of sacrifice involved in working in Hollywood, and like I hate saying that, because I want to tell people, like, follow your dreams and you can do it, but like,
but also no.
So I met this guy. I compete at conventions. So I competed at WonderCon. I won a costume con scholarship. So I was able to attend their event in San Diego the following year.
Cool.
I went with my mom. It was a great weekend because it was like Mother's Day weekend. We had a wonderful time. The con was garbage, but I had a great time with my mom.
I've heard that.
So while I'm there, my mom is a talker. I love her to pieces. She is just like one of the most social people that you'll ever meet. She works at Walmart right now, if that gives you like any perception of the kind of person that my mom is.
Your mom.
She loves being a cashier at Walmart.
Fantastic.
So my mom and I keep bumping into this guy throughout the weekend who, like, we kind of got into it a little bit in a panel about social media and how important it is in costuming. And then we like kind of debated a little bit in the hallway and then like parted ways. And then we saw him again at a competition later that night. And my mom's just, oh, Angie this and Angie that, and Angie's so great. She's so she makes everything herself. Look at these pictures that she did. And I'm just like, everything. I'm doing the like embarrassed daughter, like 2 seats over. I'm like, oh my god, my mom just will not stop talking to this old guy about my costumes. Turns out he owns a fabrication shop around the corner from me. And he's like, oh, like, if she ever wants to come in for a tour, like, I'd love to show her around. My stitcher is getting a little old. Her stuff's, not quite as reliable as it used to be. So I would love to, get someone else on my roster who is local and a stitcher. And that was around the time that I was starting to kind of wind down taking commissions. So my mom was like, you need to call this guy. And I'm like, okay, fine.
I love your mom as a walking resume. I need that.
She is.
I love that.
She's a treasure. So I call him up and I go in for a tour and he's like, great. So when can you start?
Oh.
And I was like, I don't Monday, I guess.
Was it an interview?
And he was like, great, I'll see you Monday. And I'm like, oh, okay.
Wow.
So I ended up working for him for 2 years.
Okay.
Until his shop unfortunately went under. But he's a fairly prominent name in the industry because he was big like back in the day. So it's like it's someone that like you'd have no idea who I was talking about now. But like if you were costuming 20 years ago, you were like, oh yeah, he's one of the guys that opened the door for us.
Right. Good person.
So towards the end of that job, I'd been getting a little frustrated with work. It was a little tedious. It was very foam fabrication heavy, and I really wanted to be sewing.
Right. Ooh.
So I started sending out a bunch of resumes to a bunch of different places. Never heard back from anybody. So he closes down his shop. I spend about 3 days going, okay, what the hell am I going to do now? And randomly get an email from Ironhead that they had my resume on file. They needed someone with foam fabrication experience to come in. Was I available for an interview? And I was like, turns out I am.
Behold, look at this timing.
So I went in for the interview, and again, I chatted with them for, 20-30 minutes. They were like, great, when can you start? And I was like, Monday, I guess. And they were like, great, see you Monday. And I have been working there ever since.
I love that. That is an interesting route of things, but
yeah,
but it's very, very similar to how a lot of entertainment jobs are got, like how people get them. And it's weird, but it is kind of like, it's how it's your workmanship, obviously. I mean, your mom would have been chatting you up it's your mom, she's going to chat you up, but also you're a fantastic seamstress. And so he obviously knew your work by looking at those pictures and being like, oh, she knows what she's doing. And, being flexible and going in. So
yeah,
it's possible, people.
Yeah.
You just have to really put yourself out there.
It is very much about just kind of not being afraid and talking to anyone, I never would have talked to that old guy at the con, you know what I mean? Like he started arguing with me in that panel and I was like, screw this guy, what a dick. And then like 2 hours later he's like, yeah, so do you want to come in for an interview? And I'm like,
I love that. Okay. But I mean, that's a pretty good process. So with working in like these really big entertainment projects, whether it's film, TV, anything, you have what's something called an NDA. And that is one thing I want to stress at the beginning of this whole video is that Angi, yes, she worked on Scarlet Witch. However, you're not going to get magical links of where to buy her beautiful fabric for her cloak. You're not going to get this stuff. So if that's what you're in here for, sorry kids, but we are here going to break down the whole outfit and just what we think about, and she'll talk about some things, but I want to stress the fact that she is still under an NDA, everybody. So we can't give too many things away, but can you tell us what an NDA is exactly, especially with a Hollywood backing, because I know it's different for some other ones too.
Yeah. So an NDA stands for a non-disclosure agreement, and that basically means that you won't talk about whatever it is that you work on.
Yeah.
Some places they'll have you sign an NDA per project. At shops like the one that I work at, we sign an NDA when we start.
I was gonna ask that. Like, when did you sign it? Like, right in the walk in the door? Don't even look to your right. Sign this.
Yes, I've brought people in for tours of the shop, and they have to sign an NDA before they can walk past the lobby.
Interesting.
So in the lobby, we have on display a bunch of stuff that like has already been released. Like the Wonder Woman costume is just like pow, right there when you walk in. We've got like a giant Black Panther helmet.
Okay.
And every time I walk in the door, I'm like, ooh.
I mean, honestly, I would be the same. I would be fangirling over outfits probably way too much. I probably wouldn't even be
No, it's really, really awesome. And it's really impressive just walking through the door. But if I want to take someone on a tour of the shop and be like, this is where I work, mom, they have to sign a non-disclosure agreement. And essentially what that means is when they walk through the shop to get to the room where I work, to see the space that I work in, they're going to walk past a bunch of things that people are working on that they're not supposed to know exist.
So do does security take your cell phones? I mean, is everyone like no cameras, no anything, no flash photography, keep your hands in your pockets?
There are signs everywhere, no photography. And they're sort of lax on it with employees because they understand, you know, that we want to build a portfolio and sometimes we just need like reference photos.
Right. Yeah. That's
but generally, and again, dependent on the project. Like we just recently did a project where the client very specifically was like, no employees are taking a reference photo. The owner is taking that photo for them.
Wow. Okay. That's interesting.
So, you know, everything is it's very up in the air. It's very project to project. And we really kind of have to be on our toes to like know what is and isn't okay. But when we do have tours come through, we will generally be shadowed. Like they're fairly chill. So they'd be like, oh yeah, you know, like go take your guest around, make sure they don't take any photos. But we have cameras everywhere. So they'll keep an eye on us as we're going to make sure we're not taking pictures or like putting anything in our purse or whatever.
Yeah, because that could get so hairy, especially with the costume industry that is called cosplay and just reproduction costume in general. I know when the hero outfit for Wanda, the one that we're discussing, popped like the day after, people were making 3D files. I already saw some like, you know, third-party China distributors trying to make the costumes that I'm like, I don't even think that's the right color, but I understand your hype, like calm down. It's amazing. So I understand that lockdown. It's pretty intense. And that's
how
nice
big
to know that
the cosplay community is. Studios are very protective and visitors are very eager.
Yes. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I would be like, can I come in, please? Can I please come in? Because that's the shit I like.
We do have like one of my very close friends at the shop has brought in a couple of people and the boss will be like, "Hey, cosplay friends?"
I mean,
like, they don't want cosplayers coming in the shop because we are too eager to steal company secrets. And that is one of the things that we specifically sign our NDA with the company for, is to protect those secrets. You know, we come up with we have a lot of techniques for putting costumes together and mounting armor pieces and closures and things like that are very specific to our company. And if we were to take that to other studios or send that out to cosplayers, now all of that draw for a studio to come to us for our very unique look is just out the window because everybody knows it.
Business, kids.
But additionally, it also protects our client. So, you know, for everybody watching this video is probably a Marvel fan, and you probably witnessed that fun little fiasco around when like Infinity War Endgame was coming out, where Tom Holland had to have like a guy sitting next to him to make sure he shut his freaking mouth.
I mean, he has a problem, but then again,
he has a problem, but he loves what he does and he's so excited. He just can't contain his excitement. And because he's a celebrity, they're a little more like chill with him. They're like, please try to keep your mouth shut. Like, we're not gonna like fire you because you can't keep your mouth shut. Just try to keep your mouth shut.
Keep your mouth shut. Yeah.
As opposed to little peons like me, where like if something were to come out about, let's say I know that a character is going to be in an upcoming Marvel movie that hasn't come out yet, and I were to be like, oh yeah, I'm working on the costume for such and such for XYZ movie, I've now ruined that surprise for the studio.
And spoilers are a big business, and some people just are like, it's not just this internet thing. Like, if I knew, Ahsoka was going to be in The Mandalorian 4 or 5 months before, I would have not had that feeling when Bo-Katan just slipped that in there right at the end. I wouldn't have had that. And that's part of all of this crazy hype, especially with Disney and Marvel. They're so good at it, but other shows as well. So
yeah. And again, I know we talked about it before we started, but I knew Ahsoka was going to be on The Mandalorian season 2 because we worked on Bo-Katan.
Yeah.
And we did a couple accessories for Ahsoka in the shop, but it was sort of a collaborative effort between another shop and ourselves. And it was so hard to keep that to myself because I knew how excited people like you were gonna be.
Yep. I probably
I wanted to tell you so bad, but I knew if I told you, you were going to lose that opportunity.
That love, that crazy 4 a.m. bawling, crying, and like throwing a pillow at my significant other. Like, she's coming to live action. It's happening. It's a feeling that I treasure.
You always have to bear in mind as well, the phone chain effect.
Yeah.
Where like I could trust you with my life, and I could tell you, oh, Ahsoka's going to be in season 2, and then you very excitedly turn to your other friend who loves Ahsoka, and you're like, I trust you. You can't tell anybody Ahsoka's going to be in season 2, and then they go, and it just goes on and on and on and on and on, and then all of a sudden
everybody trusts each other. Like, I love you, and I trust you, but they also have other people they trust, and it is like that. So it's not like you holding back the secret. I'm not taking it personal. It's okay.
Yeah, it's never personal. When someone in the film industry that tells you I can't talk about it, it's not personal. They literally could lose their job.
Exactly. No one wants that. It's hard enough to get those jobs. Please keep
exactly.
It. So, moral of the story, if you know somebody who works in film and you suspect them working on something really cool, don't hound them. Okay? All right. So moving on, can you tell us any other projects that you and your team at Ironhead worked on?
Well,
that's not under an NDA.
like I already mentioned, obviously we know I worked on WandaVision. Specifically, we worked on the Scarlet Witch. We did White Vision, and we did the spacesuit that Monica wears when she goes back.
It's cool because I think I actually talk about that later, but I'll touch that now. For people who don't know, there are a lot of different costume houses that work on the same project. So you guys got the hero outfit and White Vision and the spacesuit. Someone else's house got Agatha's outfits and her hero outfit and Vision suit and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So
and unless something comes through our shop for us to do like a specific part, I don't know about anything. Like, I didn't know about Agatha at all. We never saw any artwork for her. Nobody talks about that character because there was no reason for the studio to tell us that she was even a character because we're not working on that at all.
Right. Yeah. What you need to know is what you need to know.
Exactly. So we worked on those 3 for WandaVision. For Mandalorian season 2, we worked on Bo-Katan and Koska. And then there's a new movie that's about to come out on Netflix called Thunder Force, starring Melissa McCarthy and
Yep, it's right there. Her name is she's from The Help. That chick.
Shoot, I'm totally blanking on her name. I told myself to check before, but it's okay. Thunder Force is coming to Netflix very, very soon, and that was literally the first thing that I ever touched when I walked in. On my first day, they were like, make straps for this, and I was like, okay. So it's not only is it really exciting to finally get to see the first thing that I worked on, but it sort of emphasizes like the production differences of different things, because there's been multiple things that we have worked on since Thunder Force being my first thing all the way up until this past week. We've worked on a ton of projects that either are just starting production or got delayed because of COVID. And even, like there was a period where all of Los Angeles was just completely shut down. So we couldn't even work on costumes for productions that were shooting in other countries that hadn't shut down.
It's been a mess. It's been
a little bit of a mess. But I do try to point it out, like as things come out, I'll be like,
Worked on that. But leading that into like, what was it like working on big profile stuff? Like you said you worked on that, but then what's the feeling about that?
It's definitely bittersweet. It's really truly magical to be a part of these really iconic costumes for these really iconic characters that people really, really love. But it's exhausting work. I know we have long hours. There's a lot of physical stress. There's very short turnarounds. And sometimes we don't really get to see a lot of the costumes that we spent so much time and energy working on. So there's definitely happy moments and frustrating moments. But I really, really do love what I do.
Yeah, it's really cool to be able to say that and to do it, because it is really cool. It's a goal of mine to have my name in the movie credit, or like to work on an outfit for somebody of something that I really enjoy, whether it's a Marvel movie or, I don't know, historical something set in the 18th century. Like, it's just to be able to have that. It is bittersweet, but also you're working under a studio, so sometimes the credits given differently. And
yeah, there's a lot of like behind the scenes stuff that we as fabricators don't really have any involvement in, so we don't really get to control like what gets credited or who gets credited or if we even get credited. So sometimes you work on something and you don't get any credit for it. Sometimes you work on something that the studio straight up is like, you can never ever take credit for this.
And I hate that because you spend so much time. It's
really heartbreaking to like put so much into something and just never like,
be allowed to talk about it.
It thankfully, as far as I know, hasn't happened yet. But I know I've heard stories of people that like worked and worked and worked their fingers to the bone on projects that never even saw the light of day.
Oh, that is heartbreaking.
Yeah. So it's amazing. Like, believe you me, being able to see something that I worked on the screen is like, wow, yeah, I touched that. I was a part of that. But I have so much gray hair. Remember, I'm only 34. I have so much gray hair.
I'm sorry. Don't have any gray hair, but your work that you did on it was great. So let's like move into talking about Scarlet Witch exactly. So I want to know what it was like mentally. We kind of already talked about this, mentally and physically working on Scarlet Witch. I know you can't really break down exactly the parts and hear whatever, but
yeah. So I so many things that I could say.
I know.
But I always really like to talk when I talk about state of the costuming industry for film or really any special effects. And I noticed this, one of my first internships, so like one of my first jobs in LA when I was still in college was at a company called New Deal Studios. And New Deal Studios makes miniatures for film and TV. So one of my absolute first things that I ever got to work on, and it was so magical. I worked on a miniature, and by miniature, I mean it was almost the size of this room, of the tumbler for The Dark Knight. Mm-hmm. So there's a scene in the movie. I'm just gonna assume you guys watch comic book movies and you've seen the movie. There's a scene in the movie where there's like a chase between a garbage truck and the tumbler, and the tumbler like goes down and then it has to like and like go back. The real tumbler couldn't do that. Like it would have to like, or like Austin Powers itself.
Like a 5-point turn
around. So we made a miniature. And we rented out an airplane hangar. Like it was insane. Like when you say miniature, you think like,
we're not talking massive. We're talking, it's not a car, but it is smaller. So technically
it was huge. So I'm interning working on this project. So I'm working for like a stipend for gas and food. And I went into that job. They worked industry standard 13-hour workdays. And I went in every single day, just like, oh my God, can you guys believe that we're working on Batman? We're making the Batmobile right now. Guys, oh, do you just like go home every day and like think about how much you love your job? Like,
I love that energy. That is so pure.
And every single person at that shop was like, this is the worst industry in the entire world. I hate it here so much. I hate doing this.
But yet you have this freshman feeling of like,
yeah, and you really very much see that contrast within the industry of newcomers coming in who like this is their first job and they're very starry-eyed, like, oh my God, I can't believe like I'm creating magic. And it's a weird dichotomy to talk about and to recognize, of like coming in with that attitude to find that everyone that you're working with is already very tired and jaded.
Yes.
You know, because they've just been so beaten down over the years.
And it's so hard for you to not be like, well, is that going to be me in like 5 years?
Yeah, and the truly scary thing is it doesn't take as long as you think it does to get to that point. You know, like I've been making costumes like this for 3-4 years now, and I'm already like, oh my God, did I make a mistake? Like, is it too late to find something else? Like,
I feel you.
Exhausting. So, you know, I remember when I was working on the Batmobile at New Deal Studios and hearing those people talk about their experiences and how tired and jaded and bitter they were. And I was like, I'm never going to be like that. I'm not going to let that happen. And now here I am. And I'm like, shit, I already see it happening to myself. Like, they're not, when those people tell you you're going to get burnt out, they're not kidding. Like, they're not just being bitter old fools.
And do you think though, do you think that cosplay helps you extend the love of costuming in career, or do you think cosplay is like your escape from what you're doing every day? It's a tough question, because I asked myself that.
It's a tough question. I'd never actually thought about it before. I'd say it's honestly a little bit of both. It kind of depends on what's happening at the time, you know, like when work is very slow and it's kind of like pulling teeth trying to find work. Having cosplay as an outlet helps me remember what I love about costuming and maintain the passion to keep pushing to find jobs. But when things are very stressful and I'm working really, really long hours, having cosplay to work on the weekends is very much a like release for me. And I find myself working on different things dependent on where I am in that mental state.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, do you find that if you're working on a lot of sewing projects at work, you're making like a foam armor build, or vice versa?
I would say I definitely still never super drawn to armor. I just really hate doing it. So not so much that, but more like when things are really stressful at work, I'll find myself working on like a passion project or something that's really simple. Or, you know, I'll make like a spandex bodysuit in a weekend or something just to be like excited about a project. Whereas when things are really slow, I'm finding I'm like challenging myself to like work on bigger projects and things with more challenges to learn new skills. And that gets me really excited to like take those skills back to whatever.
So cosplay is still helping you push yourself forward, even if there are times that you're just like, why am I doing this? Why?
Absolutely. And I honestly, the only time in my life that I've ever really truly felt like kind of burnt out and like, what's the point with cosplay, was towards the very beginning of COVID, when everything was shutting down and all of the cons were getting canceled. And it was very much a manifestation of my depression that like I had just been laid off from my dream job, and all of my cons were getting canceled and all of my competitions were getting canceled, and I was working on these big builds that I was really passionate about and just staring at them blankly, like, what's even the point? Like, why am I even doing this? I don't know if I'm ever going to get to go back to work again. I don't know if I'm ever going to go to another con. I don't know if I'm ever going to be able to compete again. Like, why am I even doing this?
A lot of people feel that way.
Yeah.
The more people I talk about that, everybody feels that way in a different way, shape, or form. And it's we've all had to have our own way of pushing ourselves to keep making, or to just not keep making, but still be cosplayer ish. You know,
Yeah,
I've seen a lot of
everybody
people that are
sort of found their way, and going back to work definitely kind of helped, like, relight that fire where I was like, oh, that's right, I remember, I love just making things.
Yeah, and you're really good at it too, so like keep that up.
But one of the things that I really want to talk about, and I told you before we started, I'm really excited to sort of discuss a little bit like the difference of watching a show that you've worked on versus watching a show as a fan. Because watching WandaVision was one of the absolute strangest experiences.
It really was. I loved it.
And it was honestly sort of hard for me. Like, towards the end of the show, I was really struggling to get through it. And what you have to bear in mind if you've never worked on film costuming before is we were working long hours. We were working 12 to 13 hour days, 6 days a week. It was just, it was constant up and down. It was constant physical strain. You're constantly bombarded by paint fumes and glue fumes.
I was gonna ask about that. Shop fumes. Like, oh
yeah. So everything
Oh.
is all in the same building, so we're all sort of sharing the space, and they've got a lot of like filters and stuff, but you still are, there's a constant scent of acetone or alcohol in the air. You have to walk through the gluing room on a regular basis, and like they've got filters going, but it still reeks of barge.
It's still
like the smells are always there, so you're constantly bombarded by these like heavy chemical scents. You're constantly up and down. The shop is very like split, so you're constantly having to walk between rooms. You're bending over cutting, and then you're at your machine and you're bent over and you're sewing, and like you're constantly moving.
The physical aspect of this, I can't imagine
ever enough time.
Ugh.
So we go through a lot of physical stress.
Yes, you do.
Working on these costumes that you don't really think about when you're just watching it, and we make more copies of the costumes than anybody really realizes. Like we made multiple of Wanda's costume for WandaVision, and because we don't know, like we don't get a script, so we don't really know anything except that this is a costume that we're making. So I went into WandaVision knowing she was getting her new suit, knowing it was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen, and knowing that it was going to be incredible.
But when?
So literally every single episode started with me being so excited to finally see the reveal of this costume I had just wrecked my body over, and ending with it not happening. So by episode 9, and mind you, we worked on Mandalorian season 2, and we got Bo-Katan in episode 5 or 6, I think.
Yes.
It was fairly early.
It was earlier. Yeah, I would say at least something like that.
So I think we made a fairly comparable number of costumes for Bo-Katan. I think we actually made more for Wanda than we did for Bo-Katan. So I'm going into WandaVision with the understanding of how the Mandalorian went. So I'm like, okay, we got Bo pretty early in the season. We got some great action in that suit. And then we got a second episode with her. Like, Wanda's got to reveal this costume like at least halfway through.
Yeah.
So we're estimating, we're like probably around episode 6 or 7 And every single week I would go into work with my coworker and we're like, okay, tell me your thoughts. Okay, episode 6 is when we want to start really paying attention, right? It's gotta show up.
Oh man.
So for like 3 to 4 episodes, I have this like weird depression looming over me where I'm like, I'm excited, and then by the end I'm disappointed. So like I didn't even really get to enjoy any of the like Agatha reveals,
right? And
because
also,
I was waiting for that moment, and it just kept not happening.
I get that, because also you probably didn't, I don't know if you knew when you were making this outfit that was a combination of her Scarlet Witchness. So it's not like just Wanda fighting, it's her Scarlet Witch. So we're not going to see that until there's this name drop that happens at the second to last episode. So you didn't know that. So you're just sitting at just like win.
And we use code names for everything at work too. So it's not like we were calling her the Scarlet Witch while we were working on her. So I extra like, I didn't know she was going to get her name back.
Right. So you didn't allude.
I remember sitting in bed and watching the episode where that was like the last line that Agatha had in that episode, where she was like, you're the Scarlet Witch. And I was like, oh, and then credits. And I literally went, oh, what the hell? Like I was devastated, and I didn't even get to enjoy that moment of her getting her name back, because I was
all
like,
you want is your costume on screen. You want to see that. You want that release.
And then she had that whole final battle in sweatpants, and I'm like, I
liked it because I feel very much like, oh, that would have been me if I was fighting in sweatpants right now. Like I wouldn't have gotten changed. I would have just been in my relatable, but also like, damn it.
But yeah, waiting for that reveal. I'm sitting through like 3/4 of the last episode, and she still hasn't put on the costume that we made multiples of. Like I cannot emphasize this enough.
Why made multiples? Do you know why?
Ton. So usually we make a variety of numbers of costumes, anywhere from 1 to 20, possibly more. And generally that's based on how much strain those costumes are going to be put under, or how much they're going to be worn.
I had a feeling, since she's rigged like on flying contraptions pretty much the whole time she's Scarlet Witch, she's probably going to have a bunch of different pants. You know?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And generally when we make multiples, we make the whole costume. So she got full set multiple times. So when we make more costumes for her than we did for Bo-Katan in The Mandalorian, I'm expecting like an epic fight scene.
Yeah.
I'm expecting her to be like throwing down in this costume. And the cape especially was like a huge kind of emotional strain for me, because that was the thing that I worked the most on, and the thing that I was the most excited to see, because she's never had a cape before.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is gonna be so cool. Like, this is gonna be huge.
And it was.
And she literally puts it on. She wore it for 2 seconds before it went to CG.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I made so many of those.
Yeah. That is hard. That's really hard. I'm very sorry. I want to know, as a person who's going to recreate that cape, is I thank you. This is for Angie. When I put it on every time, I'm like, for Angie.
Please. It deserves so much more.
I hope we get to see the cape more in future Wanda stuff. I really do hope that, but we don't know. Doctor Strange 2 has been on lockdown with concept art, and I'm just like, yeah, give me all the things.
Good for them. Keep some surprises.
Seriously, keep some surprises. Let's see. Moving through some more questions I have. We talked a lot about the aspects that you and your team went through to do it. Like, just give me like a ballpark of how many people worked on the whole outfit. Wanda's one outfit. How many people you think worked on it? Just curious. Da, na, 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 na.
Ballpark 20.
Damn, that's nuts.
Yeah,
and you
so
said
there's a lot more people than you think, and it's one of the like really really wild things for me is I'm very particular in my language when I talk about things that I work on, because I don't ever want to create any like misconceptions about the way that this industry works or step on any toes.
Right, because somebody else could have done a lot more, and you're like, I put the snaps on that. Yeah, I worked on that. That's all me. Like, no.
I very specifically, I always say I worked on this. And I cannot begin to tell you the number of messages that I get from people that are like, oh my God, you made that? And I'm like, no, that's not what I said.
No, you worked on it. That's a team collaborative effort. I'm just going to bust the bubble, everyone. Yeah. Not one person solely made the vision outfit. Like, that's never. A lot of people that do that thing.
Never, ever, ever. And, within the industry, everybody generally has like specialties. And that's what keeps the industry moving so smoothly, is that each person has a thing that they're good at. So you're still overworked, but you're not necessarily overworking someone because they're having to do more than they really need to. They have their one thing that they focus on, and they focus on that.
Right, because as cosplayers, we are cutters, we're stitchers, we're riggers, we're foam fabricators, we're all of these things. But when you're in a shop, you are a stitcher. That is a cutter, that's a draper. And so it's a lot of all the different things out there. But I mean, do you think that, what are you specifically a stitcher? Was that like your specific name? Job title?
So my difficult thing is that I do have a lot of different skills.
Yeah. So I was gonna ask that.
I tend to sort of float within the shop. I would say I work predominantly with the stitching team. But I work more in like prep and cutting than in stitching per se. And then the big thing that I work a lot in, and specifically on WandaVision and Mandalorian were my big things, is like rigging. So I generally would be like the last line of defense. I would be the last person that touches any costume that goes through the shop, where I'm doing like Velcro, I'm doing straps, I'm sewing on snaps and hooks and different forms of closures. So that's the biggest thing that I tend to work in.
Really interesting, because that leads me to my next question. But the rigging part at the end is really, it's different, because what we see as people watching it, we see a lot of CG costume work. Yeah. And I hate saying that, because I'm like, no, those were made. I've seen some of them in person, but I'm like, Vision's cape is CG. Like, how much of Wanda at the end do you think we saw was CG?
So it all sort of depends. Based on my limited experience, it's fairly standard that you will make a physical item for the CG to be based off of.
And that's a lot in your hands, because you're doing all the rigging to try to make everything work. And then therefore maybe it'll be CG overed. That's how that works.
So like capes were my big thing on the project. So I did work on capes for Vision. So while it may have been entirely CG for the show, or have looked entirely CG for the show, there are physical capes made for him.
They still need the mapping there to be able to CG over.
Exactly.
That's cool though.
But we do we have special ways that we work with the studios to try and like help them facilitate that again I can't really talk about.
Can't talk about.
But we do work with, we went into those projects understanding that the capes were going to be CG'd, and there was a plan in place to help facilitate that process, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense.
But yeah, I love so this sort of segues into the topic that I told you when we were planning this, is something that I'm really, really passionate about, is that a lot of cosplayers tend to not really fully understand that like making costumes for film is not in any way anywhere near the same as making a costume for cosplay.
Yes, please.
In literally every way.
Yeah.
You know, we have big Hollywood budgets. We're not worried about finding the cheapest materials and like using whatever's gonna work. Like we're using the highest end things possibly available. And we have anywhere from, you know, 10 to 20 people touching any costume at any given time. So we have a lot of different hands, making it easier for us to do more things. And we're not necessarily thinking in terms of like functionality.
Yeah, you're thinking on set functionality, because the actor still needs to move around and jump around, especially for Marvel, which is fighting, you know, and specifically for Wanda, she's up on wires, you know.
Yeah, so she needs to be able to move. She needs to be able to move naturally, and not look or feel limited in any way. One of my absolute favorite things that happened, like within 24 hours of the show dropping, my roommate was on Reddit, like looking up feedback on the costume. He was like, look, people love it.
Yeah.
And he messages me at one point and was like, hey, did that costume have pockets? And I literally went, why would it have pockets?
Why would it need Why would it need pockets?
Like, without even thinking, I was like, why would it have pockets? And he was like, oh, well, I was on this Reddit thread and people were talking about it. And they were like, oh, it looks so good and it's so like sleek. Like it's gotta have pockets too. And like cosplayers were in that thread trying to figure out where they could put pockets in.
No.
And I'm like, that's not, we don't think that way.
No.
Like, what does she need to hold when she's on set?
No, nothing.
She's got an assistant that has her cell phone. Like, she doesn't, why would she have pockets?
That's hilarious.
And it was such an eye-opening moment for me of the drastic differences in the way that cosplayers think versus film fabricators think. We're like, you know, we don't think in terms of using the cheapest materials. We don't think in terms of like making it as few pieces as possible so that like you know it's easy to transport or whatever.
Yeah, you can go out of the way. I remember when I was researching Ahsoka, someone somewhere found out that her cloak fabric was like this hand woven Japanese fiber, specifically only 4 yards were made for the Mandalorian. They're like, I can't find it. I'm like, no shit.
Like, yeah, because it was custom made.
It was custom made, and a lot of the stuff is custom made. I mean, I don't work in film. I don't know how many times the people go out to like the LA Fashion District and grab stuff and pull in. I'm assuming a lot of things are made for that thing. Like you're getting fabric fabricated for Wanda's outfit. You're not going to Joann's.
I mean, one of the things that would make a studio or a client go to one fabrication shop over another is that like uniqueness in the final product.
And the ability to have the one thing and that be yours.
Yes, one of the things that my shop in particular really prides themselves on is the fact that everything from head to toe is custom. We don't pre-buy anything. We don't use pre-purchased fabrics. We don't touch anything from Joann's. We don't generally really get anything from like even downtown LA in the fabric district. You know, everything is how can we make this as custom and unique to this character as humanly possible. And
that is so cool, but that causes that gives cosplayers such a headache when we try to recreate this stuff.
It makes cosplayers super butthurt.
I really think that somewhere deep inside, the costumers that work on these films are like, ha ha, let's see them try to make this one now. Ha ha.
Oh, absolutely. I've heard countless stories of designers specifically being like, I want you to make sure that cosplayers can't recreate this shit. Like, it's not uncommon. Cosplayers are not thought very highly of in the film industry. I'm sorry to be honest about this, but we are not respected.
But why though?
You know, I honestly haven't had enough conversations specifically about it to be able to give you like an actual answer.
Why do they hate us?
I would say based on the level of perfection that we expect within costuming for studios, and the caliber of craftsmen that we have on these projects, I think it's largely just like a lack of understanding and respect for the quality of cosplay.
Yeah, because
where, you know, these are people who have been costuming for longer than many of us have been alive, and they pride themselves on the quality of the product that they put out. So to see someone then take something that they've put so much pride and so much of their life into, and then do like a cheap recreation of it,
that's
I can see where that could sort of feel like a slap in the face a little bit.
Okay.
I'm not defending or protecting anybody, like read into whatever you want. I'm just trying to armchair psychologist this shit.
It's true though. Like there are a lot of people out there that are like, I'm a costumer, not a cosplayer, and unfortunately cosplay does have a stereotype to it. I don't feel like I'm that, you know, I'm a person who
I think there's also a
actress, and like my skill's good, but yet
so something that a lot of people don't tend to really understand about costuming within film is the people that are making these costumes aren't fans. You know, this is a job to them.
Right. That's
a client hired them to make this costume, and they make the costume, and then it's in a movie that 9 times out of 10 they don't even go see because they just don't. It was just a job to them.
Right.
So they don't really have an understanding of the fandom that we do, where we're like, it doesn't really matter if the costume is perfect or not, because we're just having fun and we just love this character and we want to represent them. And I think there is, as with any shift in dynamic, I think there's a lot of cosplayers that are starting now to realize that costuming is something that they could actually pursue and are trying to pursue it. And I'm not saying I've necessarily experienced this, but I could see where some people might feel a little threatened by that, because you've now got self-taught fan costumers coming in and taking jobs from seasoned professionals and like opening up their own shops and becoming competition.
Yeah, I've seen that in a lot of different worlds, because I've been mainly in a theater aspect with my stuff, and then you've been film, but I've gotten my jobs because of cosplay. But I started out as a seamstress for theater and then got into cosplay. So like my skill set is traditionally taught, you know, via your college stuff, and so mine's a different route. But I know several people who are like from scratch cosplayers, and now they're working in like New York on Broadway. And I wonder, as a person, especially in film, I'd like to know, I mean, when you went in for your interview and you're talking to people and they're asking about what you do, did you hold cosplay kind of like down?
I
Before
do.
You were like, I'm AngiViper.
I hold it very close to my chest. I never really told anybody that I was on Instagram. You know, I'm not really, there's a lot of people at the shop that know that I cosplay. But it's not something that I really talk a lot about, because I have seen, you know, and I'm not even specifically talking about like where I work, just from people that I've spoken to from within the industry. You know, I've sort of seen the stigma of, oh, cosplay poo-poo.
Yes.
You know, you silly little child fan. So I am I'm very protective of that information about myself.
Interesting.
And I do like it is technically on my resume, but it's never worded as cosplayer. It's worded as
Costume
seamstress and costume fabricator.
There you go. Yeah, same. I have it on
So
there.
it's those little like word manipulations where I'm like,
yeah,
play, but you know, it's even for me, it's very much about the fabrication of the costumes and like growing my skills. Like that's the thing that I've always really loved about cosplay. And the reason that I transitioned that into a career in film is because I see myself as a costume fabricator. And the more that I work in film, I do sort of feel myself moving a little bit away from the fandom aspect and more towards the like growing my skills and portfolio and career aspect.
Right. But talking about the fandom aspect, when you found out you were working on Wanda, how'd you feel? Because I know Scarlet. I would have been like, excuse me, and I have to go put myself in a corner and just like slightly just scream into the corner and be like,
I don't know if anybody's noticed I'm wearing my X-Men shirt today specifically.
I mean,
X-Men is everything to me. And my top has always been the Phoenix, Rogue, and the Scarlet Witch. And I have absolutely loved Elizabeth Olsen's portrayal of her in the movies. I was so excited about the show just in general because I was just excited to get more Wanda. And walking in my first like week or two, I walk past the head stitcher's table and there's just concept art of her on the corner. And I was like,
excuse me, can I look at this?
I was like, what's it? And they were like, oh, it's gonna be one of our next projects and just doing like preliminary research. And I was like, okay. I like went back to my workspace and was like, oh my god.
That is so precious and pure. And I hope no one looked at you like or like that, because I feel like as a fan, I really want to work on a Marvel or Star Wars. And I know I'm professional. I can hold my shit together, but there are times when it's going to have to leak out or I'm like, ah!
Yeah, I definitely, you know, self-control is a big thing in this industry. Because there's not a lot of like emotion. I don't really know how to describe that, but like
you have emotion. You're attached to the character. You felt something when you were working on it.
But you know, there is definitely this underlying concern of like I don't want to look unprofessional by being too overly excited about this.
Yeah, it's like meeting a celebrity for the first time. You don't want to be that person that they talk about to their friends later. Like there was this weirdo crazy person.
And you never really know in this industry, especially being so new. I was very, very concerned because I didn't know if this was the kind of place where if I expressed how excited I was about this project, they would let me do more. Or be like, maybe we need to like cut her hours a little bit.
That stinks because you have a passion and it is costuming, but you have a passion to work on things that like you love, and that should be like, give her the opportunity. She's gonna put a lot of work into it. It's gonna come from love. Like you want that, and it sucks that they don't feel that way. Maybe other houses do.
There definitely is. There's more appreciation for that passion than I thought that there was. But again, that was I think the third thing that I worked on within my first like month of being there. So I was like, I am so lucky to be here. I don't want to do anything that's going to potentially jeopardize this.
So put your Scarlet
I was like, don't let them know that I'm a cosplayer, and don't let them know that I'm excited about this, because if they know I'm a cosplayer and I'm excited about this, they're going to keep everything under wraps and I'm not going to be able to enjoy any of this.
Well, I think you made the right move because you got to work on it and it all turned out okay. We're all good.
I mean, ultimately, whether it was the right decision or not, I still got to work on like literally my dream project.
Yeah.
So if anybody asked me, hey Angie, what's like the number one thing that you would want to work on starting your new career in film costuming, I would have been like the Phoenix, which is not going to happen for a long time, and Wanda. Like thinking realistically, what's something I realistically could work on that I know is going to have more costumes. Wanda. And having that be one of the first things that I got to work on was cool. Absolutely indescribable.
So cool. I love it. All right, moving on to some other questions. These can be like short questions, but how did you get to meet the designer? Was the designer really involved in your making process, or did you all just get the sketch that was final and you made it? Like, was there any changes? Did everything just kind of come in a nice, pretty package to you guys?
So because I am very much like very, very small wheel in very, very large machine.
True.
And I am like the absolute lowest on the totem pole. I don't generally interact with like the designers and the clients much. I see them come through, you know, I overhear conversations because the shop is constantly moving, but I don't necessarily interact with them. However, I do know that the way that our shop works, and from what I understand, the way that most shops work, is we are ultimately making, it's sort of the same as taking commissions. You know, you are ultimately making the clients. It's their design, and we are hired as like fabrication shops are hired as a third party.
Right.
So the project will hire the costume designer, and then the costume designer will hire a fabrication shop to bring their design to life.
Right.
So we are working for them. It's their vision, it's what they want. So they typically will make the decisions on what materials we're going to use, what the shapes are going to look like, you know, how everything needs to come together, colors, all of that is very much their decision. And there are a few higher ups at the studio that have a little bit more collaboration with them. But for the most part, the designer is in, I'd say, usually at least once a week.
Okay. I was wondering how much, like, do they have, when it comes to fabrication, it's either the designer is, oh, it's done, I'm done, you know, the sketch is gone, or they're like in there making decisions on the tones of red that you're using, you know?
Yeah, no, they are definitely in all the time, and they'll come in and just kind of like take a peek at things and have a conversation with the people in charge, and then roll on with their day.
Yeah, I mean, this is a pretty big deal, so I would hope that everybody involved is like, let's nail this, guys, let's nail this, you know, let's get it together. But yeah, that also goes along the lines with like, do you see any actors coming in for fittings, or is this happening off site? I don't. Was Lizzie Olsen popping in bringing you a coffee?
Depends on the actor and depends on the project. We shockingly do not get as many fittings as you think we do.
Yeah, that is weird. I would think with things that are so tightly fit and tailored, you got to have them in and out, because
yeah, we do have we have workarounds for that. That again is company secrets, but we'll generally have maybe like 2 fittings in addition to the actor's like initial visit for measurements and and things like that. So sometimes I know Elizabeth Olsen did come, I think she came in once right before I started, and then her second fitting was like off-site. Trying to remember from The Mandalorian if, I don't think Katie Sackhoff came in, but I believe the actress that played Koska did. So it sort of depends on the actor's availability, on their comfort levels. You know, COVID has created this whole new thing where like everybody has to get tested if they want to come in. So it's sometimes easier to have the people who need to be there for the fitting get tested and then go off site to like a secure location. It's all very like project to project and person to person.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. And I just remember like when we were fitting actors and okay, cat. Cat break.
Hi.
When we were fitting actors in their outfits for stage, like one of my favorite things was to see them put it on for the first time, because that kind of it gave me, the person who worked on that outfit, like the check of approval, like you did good. And not being able to see that or be in the first fitting is kind of, I would stink. I would like to be there for that, you know.
Yeah, as someone as low on the totem pole as I am, I generally don't really get to be there for fittings anyway, unless I happen to like accidentally walk through the room because I didn't know there was a fitting.
I mean, you could just be like, I left my water bottle over here.
Well, so most of the time they'll shut off the room that they're in, and they'll put up big signs that are like, yo, don't come through here. But there have been times where like, I didn't know, and that sign didn't get put up, and I'm just like, oh shoot.
I'm stepping on toes, I don't know.
You know, like it's a small shop. But from what people talk about who get to be at those fittings, you know, it's always fun to see, you know, like every actor is different as every person is different. So like some actors will come in and it's, as with fabricators, it's a job for them. So they're like, okay, does it fit? Cool, on to my next appointment. And some come in and they put it on and they're like, all right, how do I get into the character now?
Yes.
Yeah, now I'm this person, you know, and they're using that fitting as an opportunity to really like practice being that person.
You get a lot of that with stage people.
Oh, I can imagine.
Yeah, you get a lot of like, I've dressed dancers and they're all doing like these moves in the dressing room, forwarding back and making sure things aren't snapping, which is what I want them to do, because I don't want them to have to bend over and then something snaps. And
you don't want them to stand there and be like, yep, looks great, and then they get on
like,
stage
no,
and it just flies off of them.
Yeah. I'm like, no, give me a plie right now. I need to see things. But yeah, so is there anything else that you want to talk about? Because I know the next part of this video, we're just going to talk about like the aspect of it, not necessarily behind the scenes knowledge of it, but just what we liked. How would we make this if we were going to cosplay, aka what I'm going to be doing? But is there anything else you want to add to the outfit from you working on it? Because I think we covered it pretty well, to be honest. You gave me a lot of knowledge. I'm like,
it's on everything. Yeah, no, I mean, I'm still fairly new to the industry, but it is something that I really enjoy talking about, because it is a career path that I think a lot of cosplayers are starting to consider now, which I think is great, but I also think it's really important to be very realistic about the way that this industry works and what you should expect going into it. And honestly, even just a little bit of like how difficult it is to navigate those waters. Like I'll be honest, when I first saw the photos pop up of the Scarlet Witch in the shop, I was like, obviously I'm gonna cosplay that. And as we worked on it, and as I worked more in the industry, I was like, you know what?
No.
I don't know if that's really the right decision. And it's a little bittersweet to be like, but it's such a beautiful costume. Like I would love to make it and I would love to wear it myself.
Well, what's holding you back though? Is it just because you worked on it and you're like, I can't replicate this perfection that I did, and what I'm going to be doing is a step down? Like, is that kind of how you feel about it?
Yeah, it's that weird contrast of the fact that I know how it was made. I know how it was put together, and I am a perfectionist. So if I were to try to recreate it, I wouldn't be able to not recreate things that I'm not supposed to talk about.
That's really hard. That's really hard in a craftsmanship setting, because I've learned in the majority of my skills on the job, you know, and to be able to take that skill set and to push it into costuming, I had to, you know, not being able to do silicone casting. for something that you know how to do silicone casting, and you're like, what's holding me back is an NDA or the fact that it might hurt my job prospects. That stinks. I don't like that.
Yeah, it's rough because there is a lot that I've learned on the job that I have shifted over into cosplay knowledge. You know, there's materials that I've worked with for the first time on the job that I was like, oh, these would be really great to use for cosplay. But now all of a sudden you've got this costume sitting here that I'm like, this isn't a technique that I learned that I want to now use for something different. This is a costume that I want to recreate exactly the way that it was made. And it's just too much of a risk for me.
Right.
Because I don't know necessarily what the response would be. And I'm cautious enough of the perception of cosplay and cosplayers within the industry that I don't really feel like it's even worth asking.
It might be negative. Yeah,
exactly.
I get that. That
so it's just kind of safer to be like, you know what, I'll watch everybody else do it. I'll live vicariously through you, and I'll get to sit here with my happy knowledge that I got to work on the actual thing.
Well, I will embroider your name into my cloak as it's made by AngiViper.
Please do.
Just for you, darling. Just for you. Oh god.
This cloak exists because Angi sacrificed her life for it. And I'll be like, I did.
Kinda, yeah. So let's just start talking about the outfit just as a viewer, as a person on the side. Do you love, I know we talked about, we love the design. Do you like the color choices? So what do you think about this for Wanda? Because I know her colors have been pink and red, and now we're like wine and burgundy. What do you think?
I kind of go back and forth. Where like I really, really love the like depth of those shades, but there's also a part of me that wishes it was just a little brighter.
I've seen that. A lot of people have talked about they wish that was just the tad brighterness in that. And I'm looking at other pictures of her right now, and I'm looking at like the scene where she's cursing Agatha at the end, and it is those like tones are very dark, and I'm like,
and it, you know, it does look different in person than it does on camera, as anything does.
Right. So when you were working on it, was it brighter than what you saw in the show?
I feel like it was. It's been a while, so like
there's so many.
We wrapped that costume in like, I don't know,
before
November or December of 2019.
Okay, so way before COVID.
So it's been a hot second since I have touched that costume.
Right.
But I do feel like I remember liking the way it looked in person a little better than I did on screen. I feel like it darkened a bit and it lost a lot of the detail.
I'm curious to see this costume, because like most Marvel costumes at conventions, sometimes they're on display. So I'm like really curious to see the true colors of this outfit. I have my colors I've picked out for it, so who knows if if they'll be the same. I don't know. I know when I was, I don't know where put my crown for Wanda, but when I was painting the crown, I did for a photo shoot 2 weeks ago, I added more purple tones into it to get that burgundy hue, and I was like, this is not the traditional Wanda colors, but I dig it. I like these colors, mainly because I've never worked with these colors before, so it's nice to have her like not a primary color like Doctor Strange or Captain America, how everyone's like red and blue. Yeah, she's like wine and burgundy. I like it.
Yeah, no, it's definitely different. It's definitely duller and darker than I expected, but I don't necessarily dislike that.
Yeah, same. What do you think about like the different textures and the design of the outfit overall? Because there's a lot going on here.
There's a lot going on, and there's a lot more going on than like the short amount of time that she wears it in the show really like allows you to see.
Hate that.
Like I remember when working on it, it was just like there was just constantly new stuff, and I'm like, I can't even keep track of this.
Yes.
But yeah, I definitely one of the big things that we are very passionate about is texture, because you have to keep in mind that it's going to be on camera and you want that outfit to look visually interesting. You don't want it to look flat. So we incorporate texture everywhere that we can.
Yeah, I love that. Marvel
it
costume.
Definitely makes for a costume that you never want to stop looking at.
Yeah, it's so cool. Like the texture of the, I guess the lycra spandex or whatever the fabric is that's underneath. I guess if this is silicone or foam or not, but that texture, that pattern that's in the fabric in her pants, and you feel like you really zoom in on it. It's like little shapes of things, and I'm like, that is so cool. Also, so hard to replicate. But it's okay. And not, as a cosplayer, I am very fine with letting things go if it's hard for me to get. But other people, especially when I was making Ahsoka, her pants, that fabric, the pattern on her pants was just the hottest topic in all of the Ahsoka forums. They were like, no one can find this certain type of pattern. I'm like, guys, it's like a hex pattern with some other, bits doing in. But then people started printing fusible ink off their Cricut and putting it on the pants, and I'm like, that's like 3 yards of pants. And it got to the point where everyone was replicating it almost to a T. But the fact that that's where our brain went instead of just getting some regular gray pants is pretty impressive. And
yeah,
so,
no, it's really wild. And again, as someone who started cosplaying in 2010,
you started in 2000, remember?
2000.
9/11.
My words are great.
It's okay. We've been talking for a long time.
As someone who started cosplaying in 2000, it's been really cool to see like the evolution of the cosplay brain. Where like there was a time where you couldn't even consider trying to replicate something like that.
It's fascinating the way we can think now, and try to do this stuff. Which
like I took note of it myself, where I made Starlight from The Boys recently. Because I love the crap out of that show. But when working on the costume, I'm looking at the reference and noticed that, so I had this like white pleather spandex fabric that I was going to use for the basis of the suit. And then I was like, being that I work in film, I feel like there's probably more detail in this than I think that there is. Wanda. So I'm like zooming in on high def photos and realized that she's got like a little star pattern printed on her suit. And I was like, of course she does. Of course she does.
Exactly. Because the whole
I recreated it with fusible vinyl on my Cricut. And I made the little star pattern to the best of my abilities and cut out a ton of sheets of it and fused it onto the leather. And the whole time I was working on it, I was like, would I ever have thought that this was possible? Like,
no.
What am I even doing right now?
I've thought that several times, making things, going, why?
Why am I doing this?
I love that.
But it's cool that we have those capabilities now that no one would have ever really considered. Like you really can be as precise as you want to be.
Yeah,
now.
You just got to think a little outside the box, and the fact that we're all one-man teams.
Don't have to.
And you also don't have to. Right. I am not doing that pattern for the pants.
You don't have to.
Yes. And it's okay.
It's okay to be a broke ass hoe.
Yes.
Go to Joann's and buy the cheap cotton. It's okay. No one's gonna be mad at you. And if they are, they're an asshole.
They're an asshole. You are so right, and I really wish a lot of people would understand that, because there are a lot of people I see that I'm very lucky to what I do to be able to afford the way I craft. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. And then there are some people out there that are like, I want to get this fabric that's $50 a yard, but I need to pay rent. I'm like, pay your freaking rent. Okay. It's just
rent,
fabric.
rent is more important.
Rent is more important. Please.
Cosplay is for fun. Please have fun with it. If you want to be a stitcher making like the real costumes, your craftsmanship is more important than the materials that you're buying.
Exactly.
Focus on improving your sewing and the cleanliness of your foam work and your casting and whatever it is that you're passionate about. Because at the end of the day, when someone is looking at your portfolio, they're not looking at the fabric that you invested in. They're looking at how clean your work is.
Exactly. And I need that tattooed on like everything. Clean your work. Clean your work. It's okay. And it's amazing what you can teach yourself by doing that. Like you can get creative and do all these things, but honestly, if you make your work clean and it looks really good, more people care about that than if you use the right fabric.
I judge competitions all the time, and I can tell you firsthand, we judges are never looking at the quality of the fabric that you used.
Yeah.
We are looking at how it is put together.
Yeah, we're not judging.
Care that you used a cheap. That happens all the time, where like someone will come into prejudging and they're like, "Oh, well, like I couldn't afford like a nice silk, so I just used like the faux stuff." And I'm like, "It's cool. I don't care."
Yeah,
I just want to see
how well you did it. Flip your, I don't flip your sleeves.
Like I literally don't care what fabric it is. Flip it inside out. Thank you. Because that's what I care about, and that's what the people who are going to be hiring you care about.
Very true. That is so true. So let's move away from the outfit a little bit, and I want to talk about the crown.
Oh,
did you get a chance to see this thing up close? Like get a good look at it? Was it something
so here's
you were like
my funny story about the crown. I didn't know it existed for the longest time.
And then all of a sudden it just was like there.
Like we were almost done. And I was like, God, this costume is just so beautiful. I just wish we had like a nice crown for it. I know it was in the concept art, but like I wish we were doing that too, you know?
Yeah.
And then just all of a sudden I walk out into the like gluing room, and the girl in charge of gluing just like had like 3 of them sitting on her table. And I was like,
oh, I said it happened.
I was like, can I touch it? And she was like, don't you dare get fingerprints on it, but yes.
Yes.
And I'm like,
ooh. It is really striking. I was very apprehensive because honestly, I've loved Scarlet Witch, but I have hated her look. I think it is tacky as hell with the pink and the red, and then that giant M.
That outfit that she wore at the end of Age of Ultron is the only outfit that matters.
Yes. Did you like her Endgame outfit?
No.
Oh, I did. See, I did.
No, literally Age of Ultron is the only outfit that I freaking care about.
I do like that outfit. That is really, I love her MCU outfits, but her comic book outfit.
Oh, her comic book outfits are.
It's not, it's so like, size 1991. I love it, but no.
So I follow the concept artist, Andy Park, I believe is his name. So I follow him on Instagram, and he posted some concept art from it. I noticed that a bunch of people were in the comments being like, oh, why'd you make her crown so small? Did you guys consider like making it like bigger like in the comics? And I'm like, dude, I didn't want her to look hideous, bitch. Yeah. Like, what?
I even think when she wore it for the Halloween episode, it was too gigantic.
Yeah, you just look silly
in
a tiara that big without like a massive cosplay wig, like a 80s font. You just look ridiculous with a crown that big, which like is great for cosplay when you're like, I want to recreate the comic book look. Yeah, have a blast. Make your crown as big as you want.
Yeah.
But Elizabeth Olsen is an actress, which means she's this big and this big. Like, if you put too much on her head, she's just gonna look like a bobblehead.
She's gonna look like a Bratz doll, which is not a good look. I will I'm looking at some behind the scenes pictures of her right now, and her hair, especially at the end, it is quite large. It is teased up to where it has to meet the height of that crown. So I get it, you know, it is a little more 80s, a little more wild, but I love that crown. I'm very happy they put it in there. Just
Me too. I think my biggest disappointment with the crown, and again, I had literally no involvement with that thing aside from seeing it on a table and asking if I could touch it. But my biggest disappointment was that they put like a backing layer on it. Because in the concept art, it's just like these thin, intricate lines, and you like see her forehead and her hair through it, which I thought was just stunning.
Yes.
And like I get it because it's very difficult to replicate that without something to like hold all of those intricate lines together. But also as a cosplayer and fan, I have just this little bit of like, there.
Yeah, there actually is scenes, because I have a folder of like screenshots and stuff. When she comes down from the big fight with Agatha and she's cursing her, she has that black and red crown. But if you look at her end scene when she's in the cabin doing her little thing, it's very hard to tell. But in the behind the scenes Wanda Vision episode, when she's she's in front of the green screen, it's cut out. And I'm like, oh, so they did use two different types of crowns. Weird.
Think it's a difference of CG and
okay, that could be
the physical crown. Because I never saw one that didn't have that backing. But I did notice when she creates the outfit, it's all like CG and it's all like intricate, just kind of like floating on her head. And I was like, I love that.
Yeah, it's really pretty.
And then they reveal like the physical one, and I was like, oh, cool.
Yeah, it's still cool. As a maker, I'm happy there's a backing because that covers my hairline of my wig really nice. When I 3D printed
your life a lot easier.
But it looks cooler when it's not. I'm with you.
Yeah, but if I were in charge, I would have pushed to leave it off.
There's a couple people that I've seen online that have made it cut out. They've made a foam cutout. Most of the people have done the black and red backing foam, but it does still look cool. All right, what else can we talk about? So if you were making this outfit, would you thrift anything? Would you go look at stuff and make it a little different for ease of cosplay at a convention? Or just like, what kind of tips would you give someone making this outfit, you think, just as a cosplayer and person that you are?
Taking a step completely away, pretending like I did not work on this at all, and throwing all of my knowledge
out the trash,
out the window for 30 seconds. I think that there are some elements that you could find a way to alter from thrift. I'm a firm believer in, if you're cosplaying for fun, utilizing thrift. That was how I made my first many costumes. I still, when I have the capability, I will often look for things that I can alter. There's all kinds of shops nowadays that you have easy access to, where you can get just like plain colored leggings or a plain colored skirt or something that you can then kind of dress up. So I think if you are a cosplayer who's just starting out, who wants to try and recreate this costume, I think that's a great place to start. I definitely think there's a lot of pre-made patterns available that you could alter very easily.
I've seen a lot of that, and I know because some people are talking online of things, what to thrift, what to not thrift, and a lot of people are talking like the pants, those you can easily thrift those pants and add some heat transfer vinyl on it, and boom, you got your leggings, and like same with your boots. I know I'm gonna thrift the boots. Like hell am I gonna make boots? No.
Film is, as I said, we have insane budgets, and everything is custom because you don't ever want anything to look like, especially when it's a superhero, you don't want anything to ever look like someone could just go into a store and buy it.
Right.
So we do everything custom. So unless you're insane, you're altering your shoes.
I've met some people in competition that have made their shoes, and I'm just like, I mean, I can't say much. I make my wigs when I do okay, you're freaking making shoes. Okay.
I hate myself though. So don't hate yourself.
Oh,
don't be me.
Yeah.
Learn from my mistakes.
Well, I feel that. But definitely for Wanda, for people who are making that are still watching our very long interview, I definitely don't be afraid to thrift. I've seen some people find curtain fabric for the cloak, and I'm like, wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
At the price that normally it would cost. Don't be afraid to get out there and try. I necessarily wouldn't suggest thrifting her bodice, maybe, because that's a lot of intricacies. I know that's probably one to make, but asking you as a cosplayer, would you make this out of foam, or would you make this a bodice with fabric, just as a cosplayer?
So I want to emphasize first and foremost that the ability to alter something for her bodice is very dependent on how accurate you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
Because I do think that you could find some sort of corset top or fitted top,
right, that comes up so far,
paint or add vinyl to, or even like I wouldn't even necessarily steer away from like a standard sweetheart corset that you then add
stuff
onto. So there is a lot of intricacy that would be difficult to recreate, but because I'm me, I have to take a moment to emphasize that just because it's there doesn't mean it all has to be in your cosplay.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
How I would make it, I literally cannot answer that question.
I understand from our chat before. I get it.
My answer gives away
too much. Yeah, and that's okay.
I'm now so sorry.
It was fine. It's fine.
But
people I do want secrets, Angie. Give it to us.
Overall, you're trying to trick me. Overall, I would stick with fabric and foam for most of it. I think those would be the easiest materials to work with, and I think they would be the best to replicate the final look of
it's so outfit. Seamless. Like it looks like there's no seams. That's so pretty and also so difficult. Like, where's the zippers,
Yeah.
You don't tell me. You don't have to answer that. I'm just saying out loud. Really as a person who's had to break this outfit down for this video, I'm like, where do I put the back corset lining, or like, how am I going to get into this damn thing? I find that really interesting and fun, but I'm a big believer of everything in the back. Everything in the back.
Yeah. And especially, taking into consideration that these costumes are made for film for people that never put themselves into their own costumes.
Yes. That is very true.
But if that helps anybody think about the way that you could put things together, like film costumes, again, we don't think about how can I get in and out of this, because it literally doesn't matter.
No. So long story short, Elizabeth Olsen is sewn into this outfit completely, and then rip it off of her at the end of the day. Take a giant box cutter and go, sure. That's why you had to make so many. Figured it out. I figured it out.
That's it. It's literally super glued in there.
Oh my goodness. Okay. So oh God, that'd be awful. So the last thing talking about the outfit is I know you probably can't talk about too much, but the cloak, and comparing it to other famous cloaks in the MCU, I just am really happy that she has a cloak. I'm very excited about it. Do you think that the cloak is going to be, actually, it's all my questions are like, what does the freaking back look like? Oh, I can't find it.
I want to talk about. That's the biggest thing that I want to talk about, because I love the design for it, and I was so excited working on them, and I I did so much work for them. But the fact that we haven't really gotten a good view of what they look like, I don't want to I don't want to ruin anything.
That's okay. That's okay. I just wish we could have seen more of it. I really wish that she was up there with the battle with the cloak.
Tell me really about
cool. But I like her. I like when she was walking into the town and she puts her hood up, like, you know, she's hiding herself. And then she's always kind of had a hood and a cloak somehow, or a jacket. And then for her to get this part as her Scarlet Witch outfit was pretty cool.
Yeah, she's very much sort of incognito, which I really like. I love the ability to hide in a cloak.
Yeah.
So I think that was a really cool element for them to incorporate into her costume as someone who is pretty constantly in hiding.
Yeah. I will say, as a cosplayer, the cloak is what made me want to do this outfit.
Oh, good.
I don't know why, but I love the outfit, but I'm also a person who doesn't like a lot of sleeveless things. And so when the cloak was added, I was like, fantastic. I can find my problem spots.
Here we go.
Here we go. Here we go. Okay. So the last things are, I have 2 Discord questions from my awesome Discord people that I want to ask you. The first, actually, they're both from Stitch and Sparkles. So the first question is, what's the most surprising thing about the outfit to you?
The most surprising thing about the outfit was definitely the reality of making so many of them for how little it was used. Because you really,
that boggles my mind.
You can't really understand how this works until you experience a situation like that. Where I like, and all of us in the shop even were like, you know, we'd come in every week and we're like, I don't understand, like,
why?
How many of those did we make? Do you guys remember how many we made? Like, it was a ton.
Are there multiple Scarlet Witches? Do people get to wear this?
Why hasn't she worn it yet? So that was really truly the most surprising thing. Because by that point I'd seen a couple of costumes come through, so I had sort of an idea of like how things went together. But that reality, I was like, I didn't even consider that there could be a situation where you would make multiple copies of something and they would wear it for 2 minutes.
It boggles. Do you know how many you made for White Vision? Just curious on like a comparison. Did you make as many, or just because Wanda's the hero and it's all WandaVision that you had a lot?
You know what's hilarious? I think we only made like 2. We made like 2 or 3 for him, which again,
like, why though?
He had the big battle.
He did have a way more knockdown draw battle and way more screen time.
At least 3 times as many for Wanda.
Know, this leads me to believe, I wonder if a lot of stuff got cut, like that, if her and her
that's possible.
It's got to be that, because why would you pay for 6 outfits as a person who's had?
It's possible they had like grander plans.
I think they had grander plans. I think it comes down,
the script was really finalized.
That, or maybe her big battle was in the outfit and they were just like, it's not fitting, we got to reshoot it. Elizabeth, go get in your comfy stuff, you know?
Yeah, maybe they didn't feel like they were getting that big reveal, so they decided to move it later in the episode. Like there's a million things that could have happened outside of our involvement that led to them not using it as much. It's possible they just had us made a bunch because they wanted to give them away as gifts. Like, for all I know, they're just sitting in a showroom somewhere. Jeez. Because once they leave our shop, like
they're out, they're done.
That's it. They belong to the client. Client's going to do what they want with them. Like, who knows?
Well, I have yet to see a raffle on the internet for Scarlet Witch, so. The last question, and we've kind of already talked about it. She asked what your favorite part is, and I think kind of is the cloak, because
yes, I mean, I definitely am very, very partial to the cloak. I think it really brings the whole outfit together. I think it really feels like a superhero costume at that point.
Cloaks are so powerful. Capes and cloaks,
Yeah.
I tell you what,
Oh
man.
God, seriously. But yeah, I would definitely say that the two highlights for me were the cape, because it tied everything together so well, and just the fact that they finally incorporated her crown into an outfit, because that is such an iconic part of her
Scarlet Witch
costume design.
Yeah.
And ever since she was introduced, I've wanted her to have something. You know, I was like, even if it's just like a little like circlet, like it just feel like she needs something on her head.
Something has to go here.
Yeah, like you're there's something missing here.
Oh, Wanda. We just love Wanda. Do you have any other last comments on the outfit, aspects you liked, disliked, anything else you want to chat before we wrap this up? We've been chatting for a while and I love it.
I'm such a talker, and I feel so bad every time I do stuff like this.
Because I'm a talker too. Or I wouldn't have got you on here if I'm like, we're gonna have a chat.
Right, we're gonna have a chat, but like keep your answers short. I'd be like, I can't do it.
I can't do that.
But yeah, I'm really happy with the way that the costume came together. I think it's really, really beautiful. I think Marvel did her a lot of justice. You know, the show overall was really a breath of fresh air to me, something very different and very appropriate to Wanda. And I think my favorite thing so far has really been the fan reaction, because I love being right. I mean, everybody does, but
I love being right too.
I love that I saw that concept art, and I turned to my friend at the shop and I was like, this is gonna be huge.
Yeah, people are gonna react.
People are gonna freak out about this.
I think we did. I think it's
the sleekest design that she's had since the end of Age of Ultron. I think that it's dynamic, it's unique. I think people are really gonna lose their minds, and being able to see everybody on the internet just be so excited and like sitting, you know, I sat there the whole day at work. I'm like on Twitter and Instagram, just like talk about it more.
Yeah, that is something that is exciting to feel, that appreciation you see just straight from people's tweets or people talking about it. You know, that's
and contrastually to the fan reaction from Bo-Katan being dropped, where when we worked on that costume, I had the same thing where I was like, the internet's going to lose their freaking minds. Like, everybody loves Bo-Katan. They're going to be so excited. And a girl Mandalorian, this is going to be so big. And I remember watching that episode, and in that episode, she says Ahsoka's name. And I was like, my moment's lost. Sure enough, I went to the internet and not a single person was talking about Bo-Katan being in the episode. Everyone was talking about how excited they were for Ahsoka. And I was like, fine. No, it's fine. That's fine. So it was really nice to contrastually then have the complete opposite with Wanda, where like no one cared about anything else. The moment that costume showed up, everybody was like, nothing else matters but this costume.
And this is all I want.
And I was like, yay!
Yay! You're welcome, internet.
I touched that.
Well, that is still really freaking cool. And I think the closest I'm ever going to be able to get to this outfit is see it behind glass at a convention, maybe someday in the future.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
If it shows up on display anywhere near me, I'll be sure to let you know.
I want a lot of photos and videos. That would be lovely. But I don't think we're going to see this for quite some time, especially if she possibly wears it in Doctor Strange too. So we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, it might be a bit. I think by the time we get to see this costume in person, the next really cool thing that I just finished working on is going to be on the screen, and you will have all forgotten about it.
Great. I love how this system works. It's insane, but this I like this stuff, so I don't mind. But this was a great chat. This was a fantastic chat. Angie. Like,
I'm so glad we did that.
I know. And I'm so happy that like I was able to like get this all scheduled and we chatted about it before I got to actually start on it too. So
Yeah.
this makes me as a cosplayer happy. And I hope other people who have watched the rest of this video happy as well. Before we end, can you link people your social medias if they want to come follow you? Where can we find you?
Yeah, I'm on pretty much everything. I'm the most active on Instagram, secondarily Twitter, but I am also on Facebook. Sometimes I stream on Twitch. I do have a YouTube channel that I haven't updated in like 6 years.
I actually ran across your YouTube channel not too long ago and I was like, oh, hey girl.
Did you watch my Catwoman fan film? Because
I like that. I like that. It's really cute.
I'm really proud of that. Sorry, not to toot my own horn.
Okay, toot. I will have all of your links to all of your socials in the description below.
But yeah, everything is under AngiViper. That's ANGI, no E, Viper like a snake.
Viper like a snake. Girl, love it. And of course, I'm Jedimanda. You can find me all the shit. It's all down in the description below. But because we have this video now, I'm probably going to be starting on Wanda soon. Yeah, that's how this is going to go. So my channel's going from Ahsoka to Scarlet Witch. Here we go. That's the way we work. That's the way we work.
I mean, it's Disney, so.
Yeah, that's all I go back and forth. I don't do anything else. That's okay, though. That's just what I like. But anyways, thank you for joining me, Angie. This was fantastic. I can't wait to talk to you again and hopefully get back out to California. And
any time, you know, my brand new pull-out sofa is yours anytime.
Fantastic. I always need a place to crash in LA.
You no longer have to sleep on an uncomfortable sofa. You have a pull-out.
I love it. Thank you. Thank you. All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and end our record session. And until next time, everybody, thank you for watching this video, and we'll see you all later. Bye.
Bye.